Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. I'm here today with the vet Andrew Knight. So Andrew, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I worked in small animal veterinary practice, mostly around London, treating dogs and cats for nearly a decade before being recruited to teach at one of the world's largest veterinary schools. Then I went to the University of Winchester and set up a Centre for Animal Welfare in 2015. I've been an academic researcher and educator for nearly a decade, and recently I left to start up my own non-profit organisations. And I have been focusing on vegan pet food research since 2020 and completed a PhD in that in 2024. So I've done a lot of the research surrounding vegan and sustainable pet diets that's been published.
A lot of people think that dogs and cats, especially cats, have to eat animals to survive. What would you say to people that say that I have to feed my dog animals, I have to feed my cat animals, otherwise they'll die or they'll be really unhealthy? What would you say to that?
Yeah. Uh, Dogs, cats, and people, and indeed all species, have requirements for specific sets of nutrients in the diets. And what people often forget is that nutrients are not the same as ingredients. They're not the same thing. So if we formulate diets to supply all the necessary nutrients, there's no reason why any particular ingredient would be needed. Biologically, what cats and dogs need are diets that meet all their nutritional needs as well as adequately digestible, so the food can get into the bloodstream, reach the cells, and also adequately palatable so they enjoy eating the diets. And that's what modern commercially available vegan pet diets aim to achieve.
What would you say to anyone who says that, like, naturally a dog or a cat would chase their prey? So obviously their bodies must be needing them to eat animals.
And certainly some cats do like to hunt. There are many cats that don't like to hunt and can't be induced to chase anything very much, no matter how much their guardians try. Dogs certainly don't hunt normally. It's very rare to hear of dogs hunting anything. So that kind of claim is simply not true.
Okay, that's interesting. Some people say that their cat has a certain disease, so they need to feed them fish, they need to feed them a certain animal. So do they need to, or is there a way around that? Even some vegans who really don't want to be buying dead animals. Is there any sort of way around that they can keep their cat with a disease healthy without feeding them flesh?
Of course, cats and dogs need specific nutrients, not any particular ingredient. With respect to fish, people often worry about omega-3 fatty acids, and these are normally are within fish that eat microalgae that produce the omega-3. However, there's a company in Scotland that is fermenting microalgae directly and harvesting them directly using very little land, water, and actually the waste products of whiskey production as the organic inputs. So their slogan is that they cut out the middle fish, allowing us to get the microalgae directly and the omega-3 directly. There is a similar company in Europe that is producing this within an oil that you can add to the food. I've got a bottle of it. I'll actually show you if you hold on for a second. So here it is. It's omega-3 daily. This is directly from microalgae without the fish, and it's produced in Europe and it's sold in the United Kingdom by Just Be Kind, which is one of the companies that sell vegan pet food products in the UK. They have an online shop. They're run by veterinarian Dr. Ariel Griffiths, and apparently this is like catnip for cats. It's absolutely delicious, and they love it. So. It's completely unnecessary, obviously, to eat fish. It is necessary to receive all the nutrients that particular species or animals require, and they can certainly be sourced in nutritionally sound vegan diets.
That's brilliant. Where can people buy that from, that particular brand?
Yeah, the company in the United Kingdom that's selling that, along with a range of other vegan pet food products, is called Just Be Kind, and they have a web shop. There are at least four companies in the United Kingdom that have been set up by veterinarians to sell vegan pet food products, and that's one of them.
Okay, great. How do they compare price-wise with what a standard diet people would buy for their animals?
Yeah. I mean, here's another company. This is These are produced by Omni. That's the whole bunch of veterinarians that have produced these diets, which are designed to produce, good health outcomes in dogs and cats, and to use quality ingredients. In general, I would say that these diets are they fall probably within more the premium range. Pet food products tend to be either budget range or premium range. And because these are carefully made with good quality ingredients, they tend to fall more within the premium range. I know that some of them target these at the lower end of the premium range. I wouldn't say it's true that in general these diets are significantly more expensive than meat-based pet diets. But there's another factor to think about, which is even more important. We've done studies which have calculated that for average dogs and cats fed vegan diets, the rates of medication usage, illness, and veterinary visits fall very significantly. And all of these cost money, of course, and the costs of illness and treatment of illness greatly exceeds the cost of small differences between diets. So actually, I think many guardians of dogs and cats fed vegan diets, because of those lowered rates of veterinary visits and medication usage, are likely to save money, even if there might be small differences in costs of diets.
Brilliant. So in the long run, it's actually cheaper to feed dogs and cats a plant-based.
On average, yeah, we
Yeah.
calculated for an average dog and cat, what would the chances be of needing to use medication within the previous 12 months and needing to see the vet, and how many times, and illness, and so on. And there are significant reductions for dogs and cats fed vegan diets.
Yeah. So it is healthier for them to not feed them animals.
Yeah, and in many respects, there are no significant differences in health outcomes, but in some respects, there are improvements actually. And we looked both at general indicators of illness, such as needing to use medication, or seeing the vet, or being assessed as unwell by the vet, and also specific diseases such as dental and oral diseases, being overweight and obese, gastrointestinal problems, itchy skin, and so on. It turns out that because these vegan pet diets are formulated to include all necessary nutrients, but they don't include animal-based ingredients, that means that most of the dietary allergens are eliminated, because about 80% of those are animal sourced in dogs. So when you cut out the animal sourced allergens, you get reductions in conditions like itchy skin, ear canal problems, gastrointestinal problems in animals that are sensitive or allergic. And these conditions are really common in dogs, and they significantly impair quality of life, involving needing to see the vet. So those are significantly reduced. That seems to be consistent across multiple studies, and it makes sense why that would be when you bear in mind that we're removing the animal-based ingredients from the diet, and those cause these allergic and sensitivity reactions in many dogs and cats. The other common benefit seems to be that animals that are overweight and obese, and that's about 50% of dogs and cats today, often seem to slim down, and in association with achieving a normal body weight, there are improvements in mobility and a reduction in musculoskeletal disorders. So these are also findings that have come up across multiple studies, and these also significantly improve quality of life. Interestingly, animals that are normal body weight didn't go underweight, but the ones that were overweight achieved a normal body weight. So this is really good news. There was another study showing that dogs and cats both appeared to be living longer on a vegan diet, and these were very large-scale studies coming from the University of Guelph in Canada, one of the leading Canadian veterinary schools. There has been a research team there which has also published about a third of the studies in the field, as have myself and my collaborators. So increase in lifespan for cats fed vegan diets turned out not to be statistically significant, so it could have been random biological variation in the samples studied. The cats certainly were not living any less on a vegan diet. For the dogs, though, the increase was statistically significant, so it almost certainly was a true biological difference and not random sampling variation. And the difference was not just a small number of months, it was 1.5 years, and that is equivalent to a person living around about an extra decade of life. So it seems that these animals are not just having improved quality of life because of reduction of conditions that impair quality of life, such as itchy skin and being overweight and less mobile. These things seem to be reduced, but on top of that, they have more quantity of life. They have a longer lifespan, certainly in the case of dogs. So that's really exciting. In all the other, or many of the other health respects, there are no significant differences. But in these key health aspects, there do seem to be statistically significant improvements in the health of dogs and cats, which is really exciting.
Yeah, that's amazing. I also wanted to ask you, I got a friend who's got a dog who does eat animals, unfortunately. They feed their dog animals, thinking that it's necessary. And they also use a fish oil occasionally to rub into the dog's skin to make the fur healthier. Is that I can guess what you might say, but is that something that isn't necessary, or there can be vegan alternatives to make a dog's fur healthier?
Yeah, they're doing that to try to add omega-3 oil, and as I show with this product, it's possible to supply that directly from microalgae without going through fish. So yeah, there's no need to do that, and it's probably more beneficial to provide it in the diet rather than rubbing it on the skin in any case.
Yeah, makes sense. A lot of what you've been saying, dogs and cats are more similar to humans than we often think. So, would you be able to provide me links to the products you've mentioned so that I can put them below the video in the description for people to click on?
Yeah, I mean, I do have a website which is sustainablepetfood.info.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I can get
Um,
that. Yeah.
and on that, there is a suppliers list, which is very much out of date, and I haven't had time to update it. I'm sort of one person doing everything.
Right. Yeah.
I've put the sustainablepetfood.info link into the chat column,
Great. Thank you.
but if you click on that, you'll see a suppliers list. So that's one place that people can look. As I say, there are 4 companies in the UK that are set up by vets to sell these products. Uh, and the ones I mentioned are Just Be Kind and Omni.
That's cool. Well, only the ones that were on Dragon's Den recently, if I remember rightly.
I don't know, they might have been.
I think they were. So I think they were saying they also do lab grown meat for cats. What do you think of that? Is that
It
good?
was a different company in that case, but well, there are companies that sell cultivated meat-based pet food. This was the first released onto the global marketplace in February in the United Kingdom at a single store in London, and it's cultivated chicken, which has been formulated into dog food. So that's super exciting. This is another one that's undergoing FDA licensing in the US, and it's cultivated fish that will be produced within cat treats, but it's not onto the marketplace yet. There's another one undergoing licensing in Prague, which is also not on the marketplace yet. So there's only been one released so far onto the marketplace, but these products are going to supply meat without the animal. So for those who don't want to feed vegan diets and still want to feed meat, there is going to be a way, hopefully, some years in the future, to do that without the incredible environmental damage and animal welfare impacts and animal lives lost of producing meat within actual farmed animals. These ingredients will tend to be of a higher purity as well, and without the risk of contamination by antibiotic residues, hormonal residues if they're imported, and also bacterial contamination as well. So, in a sense, it's probably going to provide a product of higher purity and safety. The downside is that they're not likely to be available at scale for quite a number of years into the future, whereas vegan pet food products are widely available via the online web shops immediately.
Right. Okay, that sounds really cool. It's a really good idea. So how do they work exactly going forwards, that these cultivated meats so they're grown in a lab. So to
Yeah,
begin
so
with,
it's like a bioreactor. So you could get a single stem cell, I believe in this case, of the chicken. It was taken from a single egg in a farm with particularly high hygiene standards. The cell has been encouraged to divide indefinitely to produce more cells and more animal-based ingredients without the animal. And you can just keep growing these up in giant equivalents of Petri dishes, along with all the culture media necessary to support the growth of those cells. And these are, of course, non-animal culture media. So that's where these animal-based ingredients come from in the case of cultivated meat.
They're for people that don't want to switch to a plant-based diet for their animals. Would you
Yes, yeah.
say it's best to feed them a plant-based diet, but if you refuse, that's the alternative?
Vegan pet diets are widely available via the online shops immediately. They're affordable, they provide equivalent or improved health, and they provide massive environmental benefits. And there's just no sensible reason not to be using them. The dogs and cats seem to enjoy them just as much as meat-based diets on average. There are behavioural studies. We've conducted the largest ones, but there are other ones as well. They all show the same finding. It makes sense if companies produce diets which dogs and cats don't enjoy very much, they're going to go out of business very fast. So there's just no good reason not to be feeding these diets.
Brilliant. I know you mentioned it's the nutrients that are important, not the ingredients. Again, I've got a friend who's got kittens who says that they need to eat animals until they're about a year old and then they can eat a plant-based diet. So is there any logical reason to think that
No,
way? You
no,
know?
there's no reason whatsoever. It doesn't matter what the ingredients are. What matters biologically, that all the necessary nutrients are included and that dietary hazards are minimized. And with a nutritionally sound cat diet, a vegan cat diet, that's the case. All the necessary nutrients would be included, and hazards such as contaminants in meat-based diets would be minimized, and that would be potentially antibiotic residues, hormonal if imported from countries where they're used, and bacterial pathogens, other pathogens, impurities. So that would all be minimized or just eliminated by using a nutritionally sound vegan diet. For kittens, the stomachs are much smaller than for adults. They need to be fed much more often and smaller amounts because they can't store food as much in their stomachs. But the diet needs to be nutritionally sound for cats, and there's absolutely no reason why anyone would need to feed meat, providing that the vegan diet is nutritionally sound. It is really important to ensure that vegan diets are nutritionally sound. It's not okay to attempt to make one's own diets at home. It is possible to try to do this following recipes and adding supplements. There have been quite a number of studies showing that the results are often nutritionally unsound, so I personally don't recommend that. I recommend that people purchase diets from commercial companies that are working with veterinary nutritionists or other nutritionists to carefully formulate the diets to make sure all the necessary nutrients have been included in the right proportions. So don't try it yourself, leave it to the experts, and make sure that you have got a product that says on the packaging, this is nutritionally complete, and it doesn't say only use it as a treat or a snack. You don't want that. You want something that says it's a nutritionally complete diet. It comes from a good company, a reputable company that can provide some basic information about steps taken to ensure nutritional soundness. And that could be we work with veterinary nutritionists, we formulate the diet to meet the requirements of authorities to make sure that it is nutritionally sound. Maybe they've done some laboratory testing of their product to check the nutrient levels. There should be some kind of sensible information. And if there isn't any, and if they won't answer questions, people should consider that as a red flag and try to find another company.
Great, thank you. I was going to say again, it sounds like just it's just like sort of deja vu with humans. So many people said they tried a vegan diet, but they were lacking iron, B12, protein, etc., omega-3. So they, or like, where's that effect? And then they said, oh, so I had to go back to, they sort of went vegan for a few months or a few years, but they were so unhealthy they had to
Hmm.
go back to eating animals. So these people probably eating loads of vegan burgers and vegan fish, all the junk food, all the alternatives.
There is a lot of vegan junk food available. Your diet is still, on average, likely to be much healthier than an omnivorous diet.
Yeah,
However, yeah, obviously, people should exercise common sense and
yeah,
have a
and they don't.
reasonably healthy diet. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, people talk about a vegan diet like it's just one diet. You either eat animals or eat a vegan diet, and that's it. Like there's not thousands and thousands of plants we can eat. And then, yeah, the same with dogs and cats. It's about actually making sure they're eating all the right nutrients, not just plants, whatever those plants might be. So, yeah, people need to use common sense for themselves and their animals.
Another couple of things I should be good to
Yeah.
talk about. One is this. microbial protein pet food because that's new, and the other is the environmental benefits. Could I talk about those?
Yeah, yeah, go for it.
Okay. So one really exciting development that's just occurred in the vegan pet food field is this has just been released onto the global marketplace. This is microbial protein that's been produced directly from a microorganism grown in giant vats in a production plant in China that feeds these microorganisms water and cane sugar offcuts because it's in a cane sugar growing area. So it's organic waste, water, not very much land, and protein is produced directly, which is now being put into the world's first microbial protein-based dog food. It's in a product called Microbel. It's produced in Germany, and it's also just become available in the United Kingdom, also being sold by the company Just Be Kind through their web shop. So that's really exciting. Dogs also seem to really enjoy this product, and it's incredibly environmentally efficient. The environmental benefits of vegan pet diets are really profound. I conducted and published a study in 2023 where I worked out what the difference would be in the environmental impacts of a meat-based vegan diets for dogs and cats because vegan diets also have impacts, they're just a lot less. So, what would the savings be in land, water, fossil fuels, pesticides, fertilizers, greenhouse gases, number of additional people you could feed with food energy savings, and so on? And I was able to calculate this, and this is the first time this has been done, and I found some staggering results. For example, in nations with high pet ownership, such as the US, 20% of land-based farmed animals are not eaten by people, they're consumed by dogs and cats. So that's incredible because there are so many people working on dietary change and they're all focused on humans. We
Yeah.
seem to have this massive blind spot about the diets of dogs and cats, and yet actually that's 1/5 of all consumption in these nations, most probably. Secondly, the environmental benefits are massive. Globally, we'd be looking at saving the lives of about at least 7 billion farmed land animals. That's billion, that's a huge number if the world's dogs and cats were to transition onto nutritionally sound vegan diets. If all the world's dogs were to switch, we would free up 1.5 times the total greenhouse gases produced by the United Kingdom. So huge savings in greenhouse gases. If all the world's cats were to transition, we would free up sufficient food energy to feed the entire human population of the United Kingdom. And if all the dogs were to transition, we could feed 450 million additional people, which is bigger than the human population of the EU. So there are massive savings in
Yeah.
food energy, number of farmed animal lives each year, and also greenhouse gases, land use, water use. So the environmental benefits of nutritionally sound vegan diets for dogs and cats are enormous. The health outcomes are equivalent or superior in some respects.
Mm.
Behaviorally, they seem to enjoy these diets just as much as meat-based diets. We've done the studies of feeding behavior to assess that. So there are no good reasons not to be switching to these diets because of reductions in some medical problems. People are likely to save a little bit of money and have less hassle with trying to treat conditions and visit vets and use medications and so on. So there are no good reasons not to use these diets, and there are some really good reasons to be doing so.
Crazy, isn't it? Yeah. So it's all in our favor, feeding plant-based.
Yeah, it all is. I suppose one thing that's not ideal is you can't just wander down to your
Mm.
corner store and buy one of these products off the shelf. Usually, people do need to search online for these products and to order them from online shops, but they're widely available in the United Kingdom if
Yeah.
people do that.
Yeah, so it's just a convenience thing. Again, a lot
Yeah,
like what stops people from going vegan themselves. But the more people support these companies, the more convenient it will get. So yeah,
sure.
we need to start feeding dogs and cats plant-based. Thank you so much, Andrew. That's great. A lot of information there. And
Thank
yeah,
you very much.
people to think about. So yeah, thank you so much.